lymphopoietin. If you just remember the picture, the first thing which is produced after this epithelial, by the epithelial barrier is the TSLP, and this invites the dendritic cells. So this SL2 actually causes bronchoconstriction and promotes the production of TSLP. What does NO2 or nitrogen dioxide does? It is an oxidative stress, it increases oxidative stress, and this is important for, and this is a gas which actually increases the airway hyperresponsiveness and increase allergic sensitization. So if you have a NO2 exposure, even if you do not have any increased sensitivity to indoor aeroallergen, you may have increased sensitivity to indoor aeroallergen after this NO2 exposure because of the ambient air pollution. And NO2 is the gas or the pollutant which is a surrogate marker of traffic related air pollution. Okay, and O3 is produced from NO2, but this reaction is reversible actually. If you have a very high NO2 concentration in the roadside, you will have low O3, but as we go 300 meter or 400 meter from the roadside, you will have more O3 than NO2. So this is a bidirectional reaction. What does this ozone does? This is an oxidant gas. This strongly increases oxidative stress. It causes direct cytotoxicity. It increases the decreases the inspiratory capacity, not by bronchoconstriction. This is a very important concept to understand that. What does O3 cause? O3 cause, there are various type of receptor in the airway. These receptors are vagally connected to the respiratory center in the medulla. This O3 cause stimulation of the C fibers, and that cause stoppage of respiration. So your respiration stops prematurely. You are not getting adequate amount of air inside the lung. Okay, so your inspiratory capacity is low, and this is not by bronchoconstriction, just by stopping your respiration prematurely. And this is one of the particular property of O3. And it activates the group 2 innate lymphoid cells. It acts as an adjuvant and promotes production of the thymic stromal lymphopoietin, which actually invites the dendritic cells into the airway subepithelial tissue. Now in India and China, we have two kinds of exposure. The air pollutants are so high in concentration that it acts as a direct irritant and as an inflammatory substance also. But in US and Europe, where the air pollution is not that much, this high, there is moderate concentration of air pollution. So there, the main mechanism is inflammation. Irritation is not there. Now, in asthma, as you have already told, there is airway inflammation, and this airway inflammation is increased in presence of these pollutants, O3, nitrogen oxides, and this PM2.5. Airway hyperresponsiveness of asthma is increased in presence of these pollutants, O3 and NOx. And oxidative stress, which damages the epithelial wall, is increased in presence of O3, NOx, and PM2.5. So for each of these mechanisms, we have now various kinds of pollutants which can cause this type of damage, and we can say this pollutant is causing these things. So for our pulmonary fellow, this is very important. Just remember, O3 and NOx actually increases the airway hyperresponsiveness. Now, how the oxidative stress causes damage? Oxidative stress actually causes a polymorphism in the antioxidant enzyme. Glutathione is one of the main antioxidant enzymes, and there is GSTMI, the glutathione S-methyl transferase enzyme. It causes polymorphism in that, and it suppresses the Treg function. So if the Treg function is suppressed, there is more of inflammation, and there is hypermethylation of the IFN gamma. IFN gamma is a signature of T1 pathway. There is hypermethylation of IFN gamma, means the effector cells are now skewed towards the T2 response, and reduction of the corticosteroid responsiveness. There is, as there is more oxidative stress, there is less corticosteroid responsiveness. Enhanced sensitization with aeroallergens, how it is caused by air pollution. There is increased deposition when carried with the PM. The particulate matter carries more of the pollutants into the lung. There is increased epithelial permeability due to oxidative injury. Oxidative injury causes epithelial damage. Now the pollutants can enter directly into the subepithelial tissue. Increased antigenicity of the proteins from chemical modifications. Now the allergens, which were very mild in nature, now causing severe damage, and direct adjuvant effects, similar things. We know all that young and neonates are more susceptible to asthma. Why? Because they have the developing lungs, their lungs is not fully developed, they have the immature metabolic pathway, they cannot handle all these kind of pollutants because their metabolic pathways are still developing. They have a high ventilation rates when compared with the body weight, and they have increased outdoor times because they play a lot of times in the outdoor. So they have higher chances of being susceptible to these air pollutants. And there is epithelial cell dysfunction with the air pollution. This is very important. What happens? The ozone exposure causes direct reactive oxygen species production. I have already told ozone is an oxidant gas. What it causes? It changes the expression of claudins, the major component of tight junctions. The epithelial cells are tight junctions. Nothing can enter through them because they are bound by some proteins. Either it is claudin, or it is E-cadherin, or it is occludins. They are binding the epithelial cells together, and this O3 causes a damage in the claudins. Now the binding is not that much tight, and anything can enter into the subepithelial tissue. Because of the disruption of this epithelial integrity, there is uptake of particles inside the cells and activation of the toll-like receptors. I have already told you, toll-like receptors and PR receptors are there, and they causes NF-kappa beta activation. NF-kappa beta is called the master transcription or the main pro-inflammatory transcription factor. And there is release of pro-inflammatory cytokines and neutrophilic influx into the airways. So how from the epithelial damage to inflammation, this is the whole cascade actually. Now air pollution also increases the chances of viral infections. How? Because of the oxidative stress, there is alteration of the ICAM1 response to rhinovirus. What is ICAM1? Intracellular cell adhesion molecule. When there is inflammation, first what happens? There is vasodilation. Vasodilation means the blood flow becomes sluggish. Blood flow becomes sluggish, what happens? Then there is marginal or the leukocytes are marginalized. That means they come towards the periphery of the tube and thereby taken up the endothelial cells by this ICAM1. If there is more ICAM1 or intracellular cell adhesion molecule secretion, there will be more uptake of the endothelial cells in the body. So there is upregulation of ICAM1 that causes exaggerated immune response. Oxidant pollutants amplify the pro-inflammatory cytokines by the virus-infected cells, and there is more inflammation. So this is how this viral infection also becomes more common in presence of air pollution. And in COVID also we have seen there is a joint statement by the ERS and WHO that has shown that the higher burden of COVID was there where their air pollution was very high. Now some slides about the prevalence. This is the global burden disease data. This was the asthma map. This is a 10 years gap. The asthma map before, the lighter blue portion, you can see less than 2250, but now most of the states are either dark, either yellow or dark red. Okay, so asthma prevalence is increasing in our country, and this is the trend. Both for asthma and COPD, we have upward trend now. And this study we always quote. This is done in Kolkata, a joint study by Chittoranjan National Cancer Institute and West Bengal Department of Environmental and Central CPCB has found. So 70% of the people in the city of Kolkata suffer from respiratory disease caused by air pollution, and approximately 47% of the Kolkata's population suffer from lower respiratory tract symptoms, with lungs of city residents being approximately 7 times more burdened compared to rural counterparts due to air pollution. I think if we publish our study in some journal someday, that will add to these findings, because from Kolkata we do not have much findings on what is the effect of air pollution on our residents in our city, and this Future Foundation survey will definitely help to fulfill this gap in the knowledge. Now I haven't told anything about carbon dioxide. What carbon dioxide does to lung? Any idea? So we have carbon dioxide, we are expelling carbon dioxide. What it does actually, carbon dioxide is a main greenhouse gas. Apart from carbon dioxide, what is the other important greenhouse gas? Methane, very good. So carbon dioxide is the main greenhouse gas. What it does actually, it increases the pollen season. In presence of carbon dioxide, there is more production of the pollen. The immunogenicity of the pollen increases. And the pollen is one of the cause for asthma. So carbon dioxide causes change in the pollen count and the pollen character. And this study has been done in Kolkata. So Alternaria conidia is one type of pollen, and one study examined the relationship of daily hospitalization for asthma in school-aged children and daily concentration of outdoor Alternaria conidia, ozone and PM10 and weather parameters in the atmosphere of Kolkata during 2010. And they found the study concluded that airborne Alternaria conidia, ozone and PM10 in the city of Kolkata are found to have effect on school-aged children with asthma and appear responsible for severe asthma attack leading to hospitalization. So as the carbon dioxide concentration will increase because of the greenhouse effect, we will have more of this pollen-induced asthma exacerbation, and this is not at all good. So I have come back to the risk factors again. This was the risk factor I have shown you in the beginning. Asthma is placed very low down. Now after the discussion, I can say that all these factors are related to air pollution. We have shown that allergy is caused by air pollution. Apart from the family history, air pollution can cause allergy. Human microbiome can change in presence of allergen. There are many studies. If you are being exposed even for 7 days of air pollution, your microbiome changes to asthma type. So such changes can bring about long-term effect in the allergic profile of the patient. Respiratory viral infections increases in presence of air pollution. So, and air pollution itself is causing asthma. IUGR and prematurity is being linked to air pollution by the recent State of Global Air report. So, an occupational definitely sensitizer and irritant, these are directly caused by some pollutants. So for all these effects, we have air pollution. Shouldn't it be moved far upward in the list? What do you think? We have mechanisms for that. We have explained the mechanism, though it is a little bit complicated. It is very difficult to digest in one lecture. I took several years to accumulate all this data and present to you, and it is not your fault that you have not understood all these things. This is my fault. I couldn't convey all these things, complicated things to you in a very short span of time, but definitely during your whole tenure of this ambassador program, we can discuss all these things and can build up on these things. So air pollution should be moved very high in the list of risk factors, and that's all I have to say. If you have any question after this mind-boggling, I would say this is a very much complicated thing I have presented, then I am happy to answer. I think we will answer that in our question and answer session together. Okay, thank you.